If you've been scrolling through endless PTZ camera options, watching video after video of people touting the best zoom or the smoothest auto track, and you still feel unsure which one actually delivers when you need it, you're not alone. I've sat at a university graduation, watched a live-streamed emergency room documentary, and tried a few different setups before I landed on a camera that finally felt like it could cover a big stage without making me wish I'd just hired a professional crew. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The FoMaKo 20x Optical Zoom PTZ camera is the kind of gear that promises to take the guesswork out of big event streaming. What makes that promise worth testing is how the camera behaves when you're not behind a control desk with a full crew. I spent a weekend setting it up for a friend's graduation ceremony, then used it in a low-light rehearsal of a theater production, and finally rigged it for a mock-up interview corner at a community health fair. Across those three scenarios, the camera's strengths and its blind spots became pretty clear. First off, the auto-tracking AI feels more like a helpful assistant than a gimmick. When a speaker moves a few steps to the side or a graduate walks across the stage, the camera follows without you having to pan manually. In the graduation test, the AI kept the podium centered even as the presenter gestured wildly, and the motion was smooth enough that it never looked jittery on the live feed. That said, the tracker does need a decent amount of contrast to lock onto a subject. In the low-light theater rehearsal, the AI occasionally lost the performer when the stage lighting was a soft wash of blues and reds, forcing me to nudge the camera manually. If you plan to use the camera in environments where subjects blend into the background, you'll want to be ready to fine-tune the tracking sensitivity or rely on manual control for those moments. Zoom performance is where the 20x optical claim really matters. On a wide-angle setting, I could capture the whole auditorium, then pull back to focus on a single graduate's face without the image turning grainy. The lens stays sharp through the full range, and color rendering stays true to life. The reds of the university banners and the whites of the gowns look natural rather than oversaturated. What you won't get, however, is the kind of ultra-fast focus you find on high-end broadcast lenses. In a fast-moving interview at the health fair, the focus lagged a fraction of a second when the interviewee leaned forward, which is noticeable if you're cutting between multiple cameras. For most live stream scenarios where the subject isn't moving at racing speed, that slight delay is acceptable, but it's something to keep in mind if you need rock-solid focus for fast action. Low-light handling is a mixed bag. The camera's sensor can pull a usable picture at about 0.1 lux, so a dimly lit conference room is still watchable, but you'll notice a bit of noise in the shadows. When I tried it in the theater with only footlights, the picture was usable but lacked the crispness you'd expect from a dedicated low-light cam. If your primary events happen in well-lit auditoriums, lecture halls, or outdoor daylight, the low-light performance isn't a deal-breaker. If you need to capture a dimly lit ceremony, you might want to add a few extra lights rather than counting on the camera alone. Stabilization is built-in and works well for the typical PTZ movements. Panning from one side of the stage to the other feels fluid, and the motorized zoom doesn't introduce wobble. The only time I noticed a problem was when I tried to use the camera on a rolling tripod to follow a speaker across a long corridor. The motor's own movement combined with the rolling platform created a slight shake. For stationary mounts, which is how most users will employ a PTZ cam, the stabilization is more than sufficient. The menu system is fairly straightforward. You power on, hit the HDMI output, and you're live. The on-screen display lets you toggle auto-track, zoom levels, and focus mode with just a few button presses. There is a learning curve if you dig into the deeper settings. Things like exposure compensation and white balance presets are hidden behind submenus that aren't always labeled intuitively. I spent about 10 minutes with the manual before I felt comfortable tweaking those options. If you're a beginner who wants to point and shoot, you can get decent results without ever opening the menu. If you're a hobbyist who likes to fine-tune every parameter, you'll need to invest a little time to locate the right controls. Power is supplied via PoW power over Ethernet, which simplifies cabling for permanent installations. For a native event, I plugged the camera into a portable PoW injector and ran a single Ethernet cable to the switcher. The camera didn't need a battery, so there's no worry about the unit dying midstream. That said, the PO requirement means you need a switch that can deliver at least 30 W, which not every venue's AV.